Security? Engineer? Ah, a lowly scout. Now get out! I've got important business that a smooth brain fool like you couldn't even begin to comprehend with this stupid dumpster fire. Wait, hey, hold it, Scout! On second thought, you're a tower climbing junkie, right? Maybe you can help me with my little passion project. This disappointing set of scrap here is in disrepair, as you can see. However, a scout at least knows how to get around. If you can help me restore it with parts found outside these waste pipes, then there may be something in it for you after all. Adventure? Challenge? Possibly. You'll just have to see. Okay, Tower Junkie, listen closely. There are three things this heap of garbage needs to function: a working frame, a portal uplink, and a power source. Luckily, you'll only need to get one of these things, as the frame and a good source of power exist, courtesy of yours truly. Okay, I think that about sums up this situation here. Now get out! I have to perfect this design here, and don't bother coming back till you find the uplink! That would happen. Alright, okay. It appears that the power source you brought me overloaded the frame. Of course a scout would mess a task like this up. It was a taxing task to begin with. Well, let's have you repay me for the property damage then, shall we? As to where your incompetent self may find one such frame, I sadly don't have a clue. Just poke around, do some work for others, and you might find something. Heck, you could try checking any storage areas in the base wall.
Hey buddy, listen, Tiffany asked me to create a new gadget to help y'all get higher, and I thought I'd finished it until it blew up for volunteer during testing. I think they died. Anyway, wanna do me a favor and fetch me some parts that blew away in the explosion? Maybe you'll get something in return too. Awesome! Let's see, I'm missing 3 parts. And once I get them back, I'll do it right this time with no death? By the way, these parts tend to combust when exposed to enough oxygen, meaning it will probably blow up in your hands during transport. So I reckon you go real fast when hauling these. Awesome! Let's see. And what? By the way, these. So okay.
That's what.
Alright, just one. Great. Anyway, wrench. I don't know, but don't go around hitting people with it. I don't want to be blamed for that. Again. Great. Great job, Scout. I'll get this thing working in no time.
Welcome back! For once, it's good to see that your passion for adventure and discovery outweighs your loyalty towards your employer. And there you have it! My passion project completed! Now it's up to you to explore it. Expect something far beyond what you may have faced up above. Should you bother to go in, I'll be in touch over the radio.
I'm glad to see a hint of bravery in you. Move forward.
Oblivion, what are you doing on this channel? Wait, are you the scout? Oh no, don't tell me you—
Act of frequency! Scrapper, this has nothing to do with you. Take your thick skull and delta before you get us all caught.
Caught? I'm looking at the scout's tracker and it's saying there in that delisted tower. Are you guys even allowed in there?
We'll talk when we get further up. For the time being, though, I suggest you shut up and let the scout work. This tower seems tricky enough, and we don't need an idiot like you screaming at them while they concentrate. gyro ball in a rookie area like this? No wonder they cordoned this tower off. Hey, consider this a little showcase of what more advanced towers have to offer, I suppose.
Slivian, pull the scout out of the tower right now. Think for 1 second, Slivian. What's Danisar gonna have to say about this?
Never listen, do you? Only know how to talk and keep talking. You know what to do. Look up, Scout. The path ahead looks a bit confusing, but promising. Making that portal function was definitely a good thing after all.
Making it function? Was it broken before? Wait, were you guys the ones who made the motion detectors go off in the
You
warehouse?
set off the motion detectors? Oh, skies above. How can you be so unbelievably stupid? Okay, just wrap this up quickly. Chances are the NSR has guards patrolling all over the island looking for the culprit. getting close. You're seeing there's 3 doors. 2 are locked. Proceed through the first door. It'll likely open a path up through the rest. Do it quickly. We don't know how much time we have left. This is it. We don't know exactly what this anomaly is like, but given the state of the portal and its abandonment when I found it, I'd bet it's quite the powerful beast by now. If you're too spineless to chicken out at this point, I'd understand. However, we're this far in and we can't stop now. When you're ready, get in there and finish the job. And don't you dare interject me with, a please would be nice.